we'll have this opportunity. We'll share this recap on our advocacy website. And we're also going to have our communities page, which you've heard about, our groups that we'll be bringing together. So we'll be sharing that at that opportunity. Before I get started, before I start sharing our screen and going over the session, I'd like to ask Samantha, thank y'all everyone for joining us, and see if Samantha had anything to share for the group.
Yeah, well, it is so tempting to do with this group of advocates gathered to talk about, the great news we've gotten this week in DC, but I will save that for the CEO call tomorrow afternoon. So that said, for many of you, as you know, this is Florida. I'm in Florida. This is Alabama's last day. They're technically still in session. So it's great that we're able to have a very timely conversation, but a session where, if we're quite honest, our biggest priority was to ensure that you all didn't lose ground in Alabama. There still are some pressing environmental threats coming in from Tennessee, South Carolina, Mississippi, and what Alabama, our first role and responsibility is to do exactly what Michelle did and keep the threats out of the state, and then make sure it's the best operating environment for the state. And so you'll hear a lot of the legislative ground game. Obviously, there were some big wins, which is wonderful. Thank you for your participation in those. It took us all leaning in together. But more than that, we also kind of opened up the collective imagination. It's been a few years of us saying this to them, but the regulators now see and want to have a conversation about evolving and maturing the Alabama State Charter. And that has taken not just session, but it has taken us exampling how that could be a benefit to them, but especially to you all. And so thank you for that. And I also wanted to celebrate Michelle. She sets a high standard. She does a phenomenal job. She will not toot her own horn. So this is me doing it, because she truly is. I cannot tell you, I've been in this business quite a bit. I've seen a lot of different state operators and a lot of different relational operators. When I walk into a room with Michelle, I love it because I'm no longer in charge. Me and every single lawmaker in that room just wait for what she's going to tell us to do, and we do it. And it typically turns out well. So you're in good hands. And yes, I've had requests to export her to other states, but we have refused, though she did go pull some of her Alabama charm up in Virginia to win over that regulator. So with that, and all while still being in session, we're going to talk about the Alabama session, but especially an emphasis on what's next for the state charter.
You are generous. Thank you, Samantha. And I am excited. It has been a good session. And I will say this, it's one of these things. I kind of mentioned this to Samantha before, that, oh, well, you make it look easy. You make A's in chemistry, you make it look easy. Well, it's because together as credit unions and with all of our members, we study all year long to prepare for that test, which is session. And so we're ready throughout the year and the off seasons. And that's how, while it may look easy, or, oh, you all just had a successful, look what happened. It's because we put those relationships in and that time in leading to it. And because you attend the legislative events, because you know these lawmakers, and because of the credit union difference in the movement, lawmakers appreciate you and what you're doing for their constituents. So I share that with you to say thank you, and to help acknowledge why it was so successful, because I certainly don't get all the credit. Let me share with you. Apologies. Got my PowerPoint up. Samantha, can you please share for just a moment while I pull that up?
Yeah, I actually was going to say really quick, it's important for our Alabama folks to note as well that if we look across, so every summer, so what's the off season isn't just political. It's obviously the time where we wield our influence with the resources you've gathered, but it's also gatherings of all state lawmakers. So they kind of take the summer to go on these.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
I won't use the word boondoggles, but to go to these nice locations and share good information with each other. And if you look right now, Alabama has not outsized, because it is an important state, but a lot of influence in those state level conversations. So we'll be sending Michelle and CJ and Christopher and Sydney to a parade of these state conferences of lawmakers where they all get together. And their number one thing that they do is they brag about who did the best work in their state session. And Florida typically overshadows Georgia and Alabama is desperate to say, we did it better. And so a lot of Alabama lawmakers are trying to be thought leaders in this space. So that's why it's important as well, because they're going to help frame up the thinking for these other conservative states. And that includes the purpling state of sometimes Virginia, but it truly is more of a blue state these days.
Thank you for that. And I hopefully, do you see my granddaughter or a PowerPoint? I hope it's a PowerPoint, but you would not be disappointed if you saw my granddaughter, who was my screensaver. What I want to do today is share with you one thing I think is so important that as leaders within your credit unions and also your communities, that you know not just the credit union victories, but also sort of the theme and the overarching energy of what happened in Alabama, because we know within issues that come about, it can impact how folks vote, who they align themselves with, and where their priorities might be, to know how to time your conversation, find your allies, and see opportunities. So we'll go over our highlights and our victories. And I also want to tell you a little about what's coming up in the coming election, because that also dictates what you see. It's a 4-year cycle. And so we see folks taking riskier things at the beginning and then looking more towards how we're going to prepare for the upcoming election. Is that all right? So, woo, today is actually the final day. As Samantha mentioned, we thought it was going to be last week and let the drama, wane out just a little bit. It didn't occur as early as we thought, but today is the final day. So I'll be heading there after our session together. We have a lot of bills. This does not include all of the resolutions. You put that in there, and there's, close to, I think it's 1,800 we'll get up to. Okay, so looking at the themes, this is what within the years, you'll see the first year of the quadrennium, the 4-year cycle, lawmakers are going to take a little riskier. Hey, I'm newly elected. This is big and important to me. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to bring this bill in. Or folks get in there and say, hey, I held off the fourth quarter, the 4th year. I'll bring things back. The second year, you get folks who are more, okay, I get it now. These are things that folks are bringing to me. I'm going to work on those. The 3rd year, you start getting, hey, elections are coming up. What are some things that play well back home? What are some things that are good talking points that, in this case, follow the Trump administration and echo what they're doing? And then in the 4th year, you'll see things that really resonate to safe places, things that aren't going to be controversial because it's right on the heels of the election. So this year, anti-crime, public safety was very important. It was a priority for the governor. And through that, there were various bills between in urban communities. We saw the anti-Glock bills. We saw the Back the Blue, which is the governor's priority. We saw scholarships for public safety officials and police and sheriffs for their children to provide college scholarships, all types of things. But that kept resonating. Within that, it became somewhat divisive, because sometimes you'll see the Democrats would bring some of these bills, Republicans could be, but then you'd see some, hey, let's pick which one are you going to go for? Whose are you going to support? So that became a lot of controversy and time. The next trend we saw was the immigration bills. I stopped at counting 15. There may have been more. It was a cross section of everything from wire transfer fees. We talked about that one. I know that our advocacy committee members reviewed that, and our compliance and regulatory team did too. Does that impact? With international wire transfers, what kind of financial fees are on there? What kind of record keeping is required? What's the burden of the financial institution? Ended up drilling down to, it was just related to money transmitters, Western Union, etc. But we saw a lot of those bills. Healthcare. Now, there are only 4 bills, but we continue to see alpha. Each session, alpha comes up. Y'all remember that we're having that trend between the lottery and other issues. So Alpha wanted to create their own healthcare plan, basically their own insurance program. Blue Cross did not like that. And it became very much a line in the sand. Who are you going to pick? Which of these big groups who have big voting blocks and big PACs are you going to choose with? And then we had the pharmacy benefit managers, our independent pharmacists. So we had folks, a lot of folks in white jackets coming in. So that, while it's only 4 bills, it was really a pick your sides kind of thing, which you had to pay attention for issues you were approaching. Privacy and internet. We know how that's privacy. We know that issue. We know it related to data breach, but we're also seeing it where it's creeping into those personal rights of internet filters. applying these things? Where is this become an anti-business friendly state? Because are we instituting things that are just in Alabama that we expect technology to follow? And so then it goes back to issues we look later at about free market opportunity and less government. But when we see government getting involved in internet filters, then it becomes a little sticky. So you have to watch what lawmakers really go on that issue versus who are against it. When we think about our public deposits issue and bank acquisitions, we pay attention to what their posture is. And last, local legislation. It was people were digging their heels in. And that's where it should just be you have local committees. Generally, the posture is you do your thing, I'll bring mine, it just impacts you. But folks were really using this as a way to put pressure for votes on issues they wanted. They have had filibusters in the Senate. There was one for 4 hours straight where the Republicans just went and had lunch and came back and they're filibustering still. Today, we've heard that Senator Bobby Singleton is so frustrated with the House not passing the bills he wants, that he plans to stand filibuster the whole time, as much time as he can get. And then what we'll likely see the Republicans put what's called a cloture, which basically means, okay, we've had enough time to talk. We're going to sit down and vote. And so today is likely a cloture day, which means all the bills are on there. We know they're going to be controversial, and we're going to go ahead and stop it and try to vote them. Senator Bobby Singleton also said, which I just love this Alabama quote, talking about the House members, well, if they're going to bring home their bacon, I want some to take home and fry. So he's trying to get his own thing. I know Brad's laughing. Have you never said that, Brad? Is that not kind of, no? Feel free to use that one. So that's where we are today, and that's where we see the energy's been. Any question about any of that? Thoughts or observations? Okay. You see my legislative tracking report. What this is this focuses on the bills that we're really giving the highest attention, where we might possibly have to take a position. This is on our advocacy website, on our league website and advocacy function, where you can all review this. I'm happy to send this. I will not go over all these 27 bills with you. Keep these in groups. So, yay for you, yay for us. Let's look at the issues we've seen. You know the issues, and so I'm not going to belabor those, but I'll point out that bank acquisitions for the third year, we have stopped this. It has Representative Witt, who is a good man who's just doing what he thinks he should do for the organization, the bank he works for, has agreed. We'll talk about it again next year. And I told some of y'all when he made that commitment to me, it's like, I'm going to come back every week and just confirm. He said, could you make it like every 2 weeks? Because I promise you, Michelle, I'm not bringing it, but you always have to check. Interchange fees. This was a big deal because, wait, hold on. I've got some details here. I apologize. Okay, there we know. Defeated, never even got debated.
Yeah, wait, you're not going to do it, so I'm going to do it. This wasn't, I'm not going to bring this bill because I don't believe in this policy. This was, I'm not going to bring this bill because I don't want to fight you, Michelle, and I don't want to fight the credit unions. And I get that you'll make a big stink, but more than that, I think, also, and not to call on people here, but we've had some key acquisitions this year, even during session, purchases of, banks that have lawmakers on their board. And so I do think the sentiment around this is evolving. So the fact that Michelle was able to play one more year, if you don't want to have this fight with us, is decreasing the odds that they're ever going to want to have this fight, not building up momentum, which is a really important thing, which is why she was proactive and basically showed her cards that we will go all out. We will have an absolute war with you over this rooted in Alabama thing without having to have the fight. And I think that's an important strategy that, kind of pull back the curtain that that we do. We have to flex for that so that we sometimes don't have to have the dialogue. But Michelle made it seem like this was going to be the biggest headache he'd ever have if this is really what he wanted. And so sometimes you all don't get pulled into those conversations, but she's using you all as the folks who are waiting in the parking lot, ready to come on in and make this a horrible conversation should they want to pursue poor public policy. So she did a great job on that.
Thank you, Samantha. And there's two parts in there. To your point, if you remember, Representative Witt carried the financial literacy bill 3 years ago. did a great job on that. And he asked me, he's like, hey, I want this really to be successful. I want this to be unanimous. Can I get your help? I'd love to help you, banker. So we did a call to action thanking lawmakers, not asking for help, but thanking them. And when Representative Witt saw the power that we had when we sent the thank you for supporting financial literacy, he knows that when it comes down to really serious issues like this, we will be there. Um, and in part with that, often I don't want the credit unions to be out front, where sometimes we've got to get folks out in front of us that we push them along and we help support them. In this case, I also included and brought into the conversation the banking superintendent because I want to talk to him about, really, is this the most helpful thing to your members, to the folks that you would represent, the banking association? I talked to them and just said, is this really, this sounds more like it's an anti-seller bill. And I don't know if that's really in your best interest. And Mike Hill is a very reasonable man who agreed, basically. It's like, yeah, this is going to be a problem. And so getting his support and his buy-in, I helped push back that opposition. So that was something else. And so I could come to the representative and say, look, you're gonna ask the lawmakers to decide on something that the folks who you want this for can't even agree on if this is helpful to them. So those are the kind of conversations that it wasn't strong arming, but it was just sort of, these are the facts. We've got a great group who are going to get out there and make it happen. And then you better be ready for some opposition on this. So thank you for expanding on that. All right, we've got, did I skip over interchange? Yeah. Okay. So with interchange, this is what we're seeing all over the country. It's a big deal. We have weekly calls that are national calls with Electronic Payments Coalition, sharing what's happening in your states. What are we, what's doing, what are trends? In Alabama, we were able to fight it so hard that they were not able to secure a sponsor. So when I get rumors of who their sponsor was, I would approach them, share again our grassroots impact that we can make, the folks that we support, what interchange fees do, what these credit card swipes do, just the value of the service and for fraud and other things. And they, throughout the whole session, they were never able to secure a sponsor. So that's a big deal. That's one of those, oh, wait, you didn't have a fight. We didn't see it. Each time we cut him off at the pass. So Sydney's done a great job in Georgia taking care of that. They've had subcommittees and she's been able to keep it at bay. But I'm really happy about that process where we were here. Okay, this was a piece of legislation that didn't impact us directly because it was for targeted regions. He said it was at regions. We knew that was his objective. And we're seeing these around the country too with account terminations. And what it comes down to really is the reason we cared, even though we weren't impacted by this legislation, it could trickle down to the perception of when we want to make those independent decisions about accounts that need to be terminated or closed. And we don't want to open ourselves up to civil liability and perhaps frivolous lawsuits that could come about by making these decisions. This is one that we're seeing this again. It's across the country, but we're also following this. It comes into the ESG issue, that we've talked about on other related. We had a public hearing on this. We did not take the lead. We hung back very much. And the reason why strategically is we were in the back, we were joining the meetings, but I didn't speak up because sometimes when you speak an objection, it's because you're doing it and you want to fight it. We're not doing this. We are not closing anything based on those. And to fight it might imply that we're trying to keep the right to do that. And so in this case, we paid attention, but didn't speak up at the public hearing. It got a little contentious because then they started talking about, well, how are you really making the decision on what you do closed accounts on? And the banking superintendent spoke. Mac Malden from Independent Bank spoke, who's the chair of the Banking Association's board. Scott Latham, head of the bankers. And then you had some other groups in support who were faith-based groups who from around the country, they kind of go around and work this issue, and they felt like their accounts were closed because of their position. So one to watch. Samantha, you have a great understanding nationally. Do you have something, anything to share on that one?
Yeah, as I'll say that this is, and some of you might have heard this, but it's important for us to stay really close to this topic. It is one of those that it's right now, it's so far right that it's meeting the far left because we have senators, when you have Elizabeth Warren and Katie Britt saying something really similar about debanking, um, account termination is what we're calling here. It's pretty much being called all the different things. In Florida, they've made it as much as possible illegal to do this activity. Now you have to prove, proving a negative or proving, known intent or that you all had information that you act on. That's very difficult. But this won't be had, these conversations won't be had out in the court of law. They will be had out via Twitter, as we saw through General Flynn, who tweeted, leave your banks, go join credit unions because he was debanked. He believes it was for political reasons. Barron Trump, debanked, believes it's for political reasons. At the same time, on the far left side, you have activist groups saying they feel like they've been debanked because of their political activities. And so what I'm afraid of and why we're staying really close to this is, yes, there's a policy implication. There's also a compliance implication for all of you. But here's my conspiracy theory, and this is something as your league we have to pay close attention to. It's looking a lot like the decade-old work on the Banking Bill of Rights, which is banking as a right and not a consumer service, and thus mandating all of you on who you can and cannot serve. And that becomes dangerous, especially for credit unions when we don't have open fields of membership, but also because it takes all the risk mitigation and reputational risk conversations and all of your decisions based on sound lending principles and credit scores out of your hands. And you would be mandated to serve customers. That is not an environment we believe in. We want more access to financial institutions. We want, you all have said through our advocacy priorities, we want to ensure, more from an open banking standpoint, that more consumers can get financial resources. The problem is we do have bad actors and we do have independent organizations run by our boards, which are made up by our members, who get to decide if somebody has not lived up to the community principles or that you all have outlined and thus can be removed from the cooperative. It's part of a co-op. We co-own this thing. And so it's just really important that we stay close. I'm afraid that we will see it. Not afraid. I know we will see a hearing on this in this Congress at the federal level because it's gaining so much momentum in different states on both sides of the aisle. So just stay close to us on this. And when we come to you and ask for potential examples on how you mitigate this, how you prove your teller didn't know the political beliefs of the person they live next to when that person had a lawn sign in their yard and then they came in for a loan application. We're going to talk to you all about those processes and how you kind of ensure that there's not bias in them. But yeah, that was
Get,
not it. That was doom and gloom. So I'm apologies.
get historical. Thank you. All right, then let's talk. Oh, apologies. I am so sorry. Let's talk for a second on other bills that were um, impactful. Cryptocurrency, we saw a lot of these that there are actually 7 bills related to crypto. The underlying issue was, okay, are they going to have the same regulatory oversight as financial institutions? If you're able to make these transactions or making money, there's no fees involved. They're not having to pay any regulatory relationships. We have the Securities Exchange Commission, and we're seeing this cross country, who are emphasizing the importance of paying attention to this. In this case, the bills were all coming in so much on both chambers that it got somewhat confusing, which helped us. We also have, the Digital Study Commission that's related to digital assets, that is, and blockchain, that the governor has appointed, and it's a 2-year group. And so we really have been able to say, let's just wait and hold up until the committee gets this studied. On blockchain, what they hoped is that they could put the transactions that the state has, which we already have a state journal, that those would be noted and recorded in a blockchain format. The state treasurer did not like that because he felt like it threatened what he felt was transparency, and implied that. But what the sponsors wanted really were just saying, hey, let's just use this mechanism. Let's start kind of getting in, let's start allowing and liking the flavor of that. Additionally, another one the state treasurer did not like is investment in digital assets, that it would allow money from the state coffers to be invested in crypto. That did not go well in his perspective. And so we know where the state treasurer is, and we need to kind of we need to follow and listen what he's doing. We don't want to make waves. We need to show, hey, maybe we don't agree on some stuff, but we're all about what's great for Alabama and what's important. So this is one that I didn't have to get out in front of, but it was important to follow. And the final one was this ad valorem exemption. So while it would exempt them from ad valorem tax, but then if state could deposit it, we mentioned this on our advocacy committee. Wait, perhaps might that be a loophole? When we look at public deposits and you look at the tax issue, could that be something? Well, if you're going to do that, then let's consider this. It didn't happen. The budget chairman just balked at it, but I have been told that these bills are coming back and they're going to come back even stronger next year because the study commission will be winding down. So we know these are coming, and it's just important that crypto's coming. We know that's coming in Bitcoin, but it's just how does it impact us, and are we on the same level playing ground? And then I'll tell you some that were related that weren't themes like the others. We had a state representative who wanted to get a bank with loan authority. So he wants to have a state bank that would make these transactions. I didn't know about this enough and I was concerned. And Samantha had some very helpful information. So tell me about this. So sometimes these are good. Sometimes I just like, North Dakota is one of the most, that's a prime example of one that's not successful. I go to speak to the representative. Have you heard of North Dakota? That's what I want it to look like. Okay, now I know where I stand on this. So this is not one to worry about right now. He is not, he's not at definitely, I would not say he's a leader, in the House who's going to be able to push legislation. He filed it very late in the session. And he specifically said, look, I brought this to see who cares about it and then to come talk to me. So we'll keep talking to him. I don't think this is likely to happen. It's not a high risk, but just an example of some things we work on. We also saw legislation that would require higher requirements for folks who give IT audits, specifically in state chartered financial institutions. That would have been tough. We talked to the sponsor, and within this group, we considered this. And from a workforce perspective, it would make it harder to get those IT folks in there. But of course, as financial institutions, credit unions, you can decide when you get a contract with an IT audit group, the level of experience you expect and are willing to pay or require. That should be, this is another example of government should not mandate those regulations. Worked with Greg McClellan on this as our regulator. He's like, we're not looking at that. We don't think that burden's necessary, which you love to hear. Stop that one. Prohibiting fees on paper billing. This was a state senator who had a complaint from someone in Sunday school about they were being charged. I think most of you are not doing and not charging those statements, but it's a slippery slope then also with government regulation related to fees. That never got any progress on there, and he did not work it passionately, but it's just, again, another example. And last, we had recognizing gold and silver bullion. I kind of mocked it a little bit. Like, is this one I care about? When I talked to the sponsor of the crypto bill, he said, yeah, I love that because if we start taking that, then we can start looking at crypto as a non-traditional tender. Okay, always got to be thinking and looking. Does not require this, but this was also brought by a former lawmaker who's in the executive branch now, who owns a group of pawn shops and wants to be able to use that as a what transaction. I know, Steve, isn't that crazy? Look at you laughing. So he wants to be able to bring that as a form of tender, basically negotiates. And you could buy a car and say, here's my pouch, what's it called when pirates get it, my booty or my loot, or I don't know. Sorry, went too far. Okay. Real quick, high level. when there were opportunities to protect our members, we were there. If there were risks that liens were going to be, with like vehicle seizures, that if the police would get possession of that, no, we made sure that whoever the lien holder, which could often the credit unions, that we would have that. It would not just go to their salvage yard. Those were all, any of that. Earned wage access is something we're seeing across the country. We think there might be some things happening with CFPB. That's an organization that can help with like daily pay. But we're still looking at that. We want to be sure that folks are not taken advantage of for any fees that might come about. So we'll follow that one closely. The sponsor was very, very reasonable and open to talking to us, really wanted our opinion about how it works and was it risky. So we've also got presenting a forged instrument. This would have been greater penalties and civil and criminal liability. Last, elder exploitation. This is the folks when other folks are finding signing contracts on behalf of an unadvised senior person. So all of these were ones that we followed, and they were successful while we didn't take the lead, they were successful for the members. All right, that's what was happening. That's what we did. All good stuff. And tomorrow is another day. Literally around the corner, it's time to start gearing up for our elections. This is, we have in Alabama that 4-year election cycle. All of our Goat Hill 101, we know all this. This is the time where everybody is on the ballot. And so that's why we saw in the legislature their posture they're taking. And that's where you start seeing relationships with, what side are you on? Look at all of the offices that we have to consider. It's a lot. While we may not take a position in all of these, there are those who are jockeying and fundraisers are competing, and they also play a big part in who's going to run for what. This is where, okay, we've got governor. Will Ainsworth's definitely running. Tommy Tuberville is the worst kept secret in Alabama politics. He's going to run. He's being coy. We know he's got some campaign folks already. He's got folks who are doing his PAC money. So that's going to be a big deal. Okay, so then let's take us over from if Tuberville runs for governor, that's going to leave the Senate seat open. All right. Well, Attorney General Steve Marshall has committed. That's what he wants. And while folks have not come out and done big press releases, you know what's happening in the neighborhood. So you've got Steve Marshall. Then we've got Caroline Dobson. Y'all remember Caroline who ran for Congress? And Shamari Figures, it was previously Barry Moore's district, that whole thing that happened. She was the Republican candidate. So we got them. Okay, let's go back over to Lieutenant Governor. Well, we've got some things happening here where currently the Secretary of State, Wes Allen. Then we've also got, and that's where, we send to the Secretary of State's important. We send all of our campaign contributions and everything related. They manage all of that responsibility and filing. So the Secretary of State can be important to us. And then you've got the former Secretary of State, John Merrill. Well, these are both from the Tuscaloosa area originally, and they have a history of discontent with each other because Wes Allen's father is a current state senator who ran against John Merrill. So it's a generational thing. So that's one to watch. And then when you're considering, and I say this, think about this, we're going to be, if we decide to support these folks, that's the kind of things we got to think about. PSC Commissioner Twinkle Cavanaugh, y'all who followed in Republican politics, she was former Republican chairman. She works in the governor's office. She is a strong conservative, but I've also heard as of just 2 days ago that she is likely to get a Trump appointment at USDA. So that will be an interesting pivot there. State Party Chairman John Wall, he's just kind of the wild card. He wants to run for something. He's somewhat controversial, but then obviously as a party chairman, he got a lot of heavy Republican following. AG, this is interesting because the AG in this current administration made a decision on public deposits. And so they did a review of that bill. So we need to pay attention to the Attorney General. Right now, you've got his deputy chief, Catherine Robertson, strong woman. She's out campaigning and she's a definite. And then we've got a member of the Supreme Court, Jay Mitchell, who is a well-known, well-respected man, but he was the one who made the decision on the IVF case, the bill that then made national attention from President Trump, Katie Britt, if you remember that. So that's going to be one that may get national attention. All right, Secretary of State, we've mentioned that one. Andrew Sorrell is currently state auditor. He might also be the one who wants gold and silver bullion. Just throwing that out there. Then we got some state representatives. This is pending. I'm sorry, y'all. Young Boozer is running for reelection. He is not termed out. He is in his second term because the first year he was appointed, as his first term, he was appointed for the first year. So he did 3 years. Then he's got a full term now, and so he's eligible for the next term. And y'all have heard me say name recognition. People just giggle when they see him on the ballot and they fill that bubble in. There are no candidates out there who are pushing for that. So we keep this in mind because this is where it's all coming. It is almost showtime. 1 year, the primary elections are in May of 26. So you can start collecting money 1 year before that. So right now, session is ending up. So they've got a couple weeks, get home, get ready, get those yard signs going, and then they are dialing for dollars in just a couple of weeks. That's when they start asking. It is a little bit of a nice posture to go from, oh wait, you're asking me for something? Oh, okay. So it does help. We've got to be really careful anytime we have those conversations, anytime money is asked, we have to be very careful about how do you feel about our positions. We can talk about things that are important to us in other meetings, but be very careful to not ask for when they're asking for contributions. Hey, how do you feel about this? It's a quid pro quo, and we've seen in Alabama folks go to jail, almost about half a dozen. All right, so then we've got the primary elections, the runoff elections, then the general. So stay tuned. You know that we use our PAC resources for that. Thank you. Look at Alabama for our year goal. Look at how close we are. That is so great. Josie and Ibby and I appreciate you very much. That makes a difference. So thank you. This is just for this year. We've got a nice PAC account that's going to make a difference. Ours has to fill up more because we can only give one time every 4 years. So we've got to get that in there. But we are in a healthy position, but there's always room for more if you'd like to contribute to the PAC. The state PAC can take corporate funds. So these can be checks from your credit unions. Our Fed PAC can only be from individuals, but the state PAC can come from credit unions. And I appreciate your support very much. Having said that, you got time to get involved and participate. Got a few things coming up. Hopefully you register for Engage. If you're not, please do, because it'll be fun and we want to see you there. Glenn's got that new tux that he's wearing. I think he's got an electric bow tie. It's going to be a great thing. All right. So when you're at Engage, here are your advocacy opportunities. If you're coming in, really the big show kickoff's on Wednesday. So you need to get there on Tuesday to go ahead and get your time zone right and get grounded. So while you're there Tuesday, there are opportunities to see what happens at advocacy committee. Don't let Mark Johnson tell you that it's all smoke and mirrors, that, this what happens. This is going to be really for you to see how we look at the bills, how we discuss these things. We're going to talk about the CEO process within the legislative surveys, how you're involved. We're going to gather potential topics that you may want to see on those surveys. It's going to be interactive. We're going to have Grace will start off. She'll have her federal advocacy committee where all states are included. And then we'll have each state specific group. And so I hope you'll be able to attend both of those. After our advocacy mini conversation, we're going to have we'll have our state regulator, Ray Price in this case, will come and speak. We are really making progress with ACUA. We have, and I think that last night I learned from Steve Swafford mentioned that at the Mobile chapter meeting, Greg McClellan came out and said that he is planning to update the charter. He wants to work on the board. He and I have been talking about this for about a month, but the fact that he came out and said it is great. So we're going to have that opportunity to do good work. So we'll have Ray Price speak for a few minutes after that meeting. Then we have state-specific receptions. We have such a big crowd coming that this is the chance to really share some love, say hey to those friends across the state you may not get a chance to see. So it's state specific. And then it is definitely showtime. I know that Angela Smith is already memorizing all the words to, her favorite Shania Twain song. We know that we're going to get folks out there. Judd, I can't remember if you're doing you and Greg are doing a Brooks and Dunn thing. I can't remember.
That's it.
Is that it? So this is our fundraiser for QLAC. QLAC is the Fed PAC. Okay, so this is where we look at the folks in our footprint, we look at the greater good of the country, of those folks on the national and federal level who will support the credit union difference. So this is where it's personal dollars, but it's going to be great fun. You can nominate someone, you can, have a ticket to say, I do want to hear, Joey sing this song and I put out there. Or Joey can say, hey, I'm going to pay $50 to say no and ask Kevin Morris to do it. So it's going to be great, interactive. If you want your whole team to get up there, if you want to sponsor a group, you can pay due to jump in line. Even if you're not singing, come and watch. It's fun. It's going to be a great event. CJ and Josie and Ibby are working on that, and it's going to be great. Then the next opportunity is on a more serious, more formal opportunity. This is also a fundraiser for a Fed PAC because it's a ticketed event outside of Engage. So I'm going to be sending you an email probably tomorrow that's going to tell you a little bit more about John. So it's going to have a little video clip for you. He's known around the country. He is one of the most respected and leaned upon pieces of information seekers. He's worked on many campaigns, very knowledgeable. He sort of grew up professionally in the Democrat leaning, but when you're in politics, you kind of got to pick a lane initially, just you get that experience. But he's not going to be pitching on those points. That's not going to be it. He's going to tell us about how folks are getting elected, what's happening now, sort of a behind the scenes, and he's entertaining. So I think you'll enjoy him very much. Be on the lookout for that, and you'll have a link there. You can get a ticket. You can register and buy a ticket when you get there as well, but I hope you'll do it in advance. And that is what's happening in Alabama advocacy. I hope that was helpful for you. Look at sweet Sharon. What can I do for you? What is something that you might want to take away from this that would be helpful for me going forward? All right. Yay. What was that? Keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Yes, I will do that. I am really proud to represent the Alabama credit unions. I thank y'all for being such a great movement to get to represent and to support. And you all really do make all of our jobs easier and obviously more of a joy. So thank you for that. I'll be following up on legislative events that are going to be in your area. I really hope you'll attend those. We're going to have some that are smaller groups, lunch with deeper conversations. We'll have some that are larger where you will have all of your staff and the chapters those can attend. So we're going to have a different depending on where we're specifically targeting legislative support. They'll look a little different in each part of the state. Samantha?
I was just going to echo that gratitude and say, as you can hear, we're up next year for a modernization bill. So whether we partner on that, we run it for them, they run it, we're going to see it happen, which is what you all have been building towards over the last few years to create this cycle of regular modernization and updates, regular legislation in front of the Alabama legislature. And it's not all about the charter. So, interchange and all these other issues we're tackling, or maybe it's proactive. Maybe it's time for fight to make its way to Alabama. And so we'll have definite work to do. So just thank you for being engaged in such great leaders. And we'll see you all in a few short weeks, hopefully, if we're lucky. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Appreciate y'all. Call me if you need me.
Thank you guys.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
See you, Greg.